Breaking into advertising is no easy task. It takes skill, knowledge, passion, and sometimes sheer luck. But what if I told you you can create the opportunities necessary to get the job you want? You have to know what you want and then work backward. This is exactly what Natalie Alcide has done. She is an art director at Gray Group in New York City. What started with a love for photography, she realized that her ability to identify exciting aesthetics led her to stumble into advertising. She is an art director attempting to break the ordinary, and break the ordinary she does. We discuss her break-in, graduate school, the Marcus Graham program, and discuss in length advice and resources tailored specifically for the aspiring art director and copywriter. So to see her portfolio, LinkedIn account, and specific resources, head over to our Instagram at enteringad. As well, this episode is supported by Chicago Portfolio School. They've helped thousands of students break into the industry since 2005. Learn more about their process at chicagoportfolio.com. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Natalie Alcide, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. How are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Doing good. So excited to be here.
Excited to have you on. It's going to be a fun episode. You are an art director at Gray Group. Is that in New York? Where are you at?
That is.
In New York. Very nice. Didn't they merge with AKQA? What's the agency?
They tried to. Have heard some tea that I won't share about why that merger was a little rocky. But okay. Yes, I guess you could think of it as like a stepmom. So that is our stepmom. I'm probably butchering the nature of the relationship.
Okay.
From my understanding.
Well, good to know. Okay. I thought it was like a complete one-to-one merge, and maybe I just haven't been following closely enough, and that's my fault.
Neither has our staff, so we're all in the dark too.
Yeah, I get it. I know that's higher up. There's those people making those decisions wherever they're at. But let's talk about you. You're an art director at Gray Group. How long have you been there? We have a lot to talk about this episode, and I'm excited for that. But how long have you been at Gray?
Definitely. I've been here for 7 months. It feels like way longer than that. But it's been a fun ride so far.
Cool. And art director. So are you teamed up with a copywriter? Do you have like a partner in crime? Like who is that?
I am. My partner is awesome. He is from Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. You want to give his name a shout out?
Yes, Mr. James Fees. I said he was from KC first because he reps that very hard. So.
I like that. Well, they got a good football team there. Where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. That is like a unicorn now to most people. But
Why
I've
do you
been
say
here
that?
For a minute. A lot of people here, especially in this industry, are not like native New Yorkers. I have a feeling it has to do with a lot of reasons, but it's interesting.
Interesting. Maybe we'll hint at some of those reasons in a little bit.
I think so.
But you're from Brooklyn. Good pizza there, I'm sure.
Yes.
I've never been. I've been to Manhattan. Never been to Brooklyn. What's like your favorite place to eat? Give us like a couple of your recommended places to go there.
To eat in Brooklyn. Whew. That's a heavy one. I think can't fail you guys here. Okay. If you're looking for like a good, authentic Italian meal, I would recommend Michael's. It is very, very deep in Brooklyn, but it is so good. You will not regret it.
Okay. All right. That's good. Is that your only one or anything else? Like pizza slice, anything there?
Pizza slice. I'm a trader. My favorite pizza comes from Manhattan.
Okay. What's that?
Jay's Pizza on 14th Street near 7th Avenue.
Okay.
You'll not regret it.
Okay. Love it. So you're from Brooklyn and you're an art director at Gray Group. Tell us about your position as an art director at Gray Group. What are you doing? Who's your manager? What are you working on? Are you legally allowed to tell us that? Give us the tea. Give us the details.
At a glance, I touch quite a few different accounts at the agency. My main account is GSK, so think like Advil, Robitussin, lots of our over-the-counter medicine friends. I also work on Pringles and get the chance to work on lots of new business stuff. So they do a good job at keeping me busy, but they also keep me excited. So that's
Okay.
super fun. I work with an awesome team of executive creative directors who are relatively new too. I think across the board, we've had a lot of new blood coming in, which is exciting to see. But yeah, I think my day to day is a very fair mix of just like concepting and really coming up with really cool ways to break through the noise of all the advertising clutter that you see. But I think a lot of it too is also craft and a huge part of it too is storytelling, obviously. And I think storytelling in a way that is different. That's, I guess, thumb stopping. I hate that term, but it's a true one. And I think stories that depict things that we don't often see. A lot of stories that go untold. I think some of my favorite work that we've done at the agency has been work that has really shattered norms and shed light on stories that we don't see.
Love it. Love it. You have an MPS on your title here on LinkedIn. Was that Master in Professional Studies?
That is. So I went to portfolio school at a small program up at the City College of New York that I'm going to plug shamelessly because they
Do it.
are awesome. The mouthful jumble of a name is called the Branding and Integrated Communications Program. We call it BIC. The program is awesome. I believe it's in its like sixth or seventh year, probably butchering that.
Okay.
But I think a few things about it to me that are great. It's part of the CUNY system, which is the public college system of New York. I am a New York native, CUNY kid through and through, so it's super important to me. I think just the idea that you can get an affordable master's degree and still also have a competitive portfolio that's worthy of a lot of the portfolio schools that we see coming out is one thing that I love about it, and just the people that I've been able to meet there. And the program director, Nancy Tag, is fabulous.
So it's portfolio pro. You come out with a portfolio and the graduate degree.
Yes, you do.
Love that. Love that. How long does it take?
2 years,
2 years.
not easy at all years,
Right.
but 2 years that were filled with awesome growth, learning. I actually met one of my best friends at the program who's also in the industry. And our dream is to start an agency together one day. So if that ends up
Oh,
happening, that'll be a perfect case study for the program.
absolutely. And it will happen. You got goals and we like that. Awesome. Okay. So you're at Gray Group. You weren't always at Gray Group, but we're not going to go farther back. Let's go to how you got started in all of this. Maybe back in high school or college, whenever you figured out, hey, I want to do advertising. When was that? And why did you think that?
It is quite an interesting story. I have to literally give it to Tyra Banks. I used to be obsessed with America's Next Top Model as
Okay.
a kid. I literally watched it like religiously. And one of the things that I admired most was the photography aspect of it, the idea of capturing stories like that. And in this case, super fashion forward, but also stories that were super highly conceptual. So that like totally inspired me. And I was like, I want to be a photographer. So I was about 17. I just finished high school and I landed an internship for a photographer. And I realized I do not want to be a photographer.
That's
I
the
think
beauty of an internship.
you got to learn. You got to learn to know.
Yep.
So particularly through that experience, I think it was just the production. I think just that side of things was not necessarily where I saw myself, but I did love visual storytelling. And I did love the idea of how photography and how video and how different mediums came together to tell stories through media. So that was always something that was a goal of mine, how to tell bigger and bigger stories. So when I found out I didn't want to be a photographer, I started in graphic design. Yeah, so I started my degree in graphic design from there, and I think finally felt like, okay, this is like what I want to do. This really feels conducive to telling stories. And then I realized to be in advertising, there's a whole conceptual bit to that,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I think is where I grew from not just a graphic designer, but a visual storyteller. And that just threw me into the world of advertising. I did a lot of freelance work for like local businesses and brands. And I think that's what kind of taught me about not just conceptual marketing, but what it looks like to make ideas that are integrated, and also just the ins and outs of freelancing. So all of that kind of led me to portfolio school, where I really wanted to make a portfolio, honestly, and merge my love of conceptual storytelling with design. And that crazy experience led me to where I am now. Well, relatively, there were a few stops along the way, but
Yeah. What are those stops? So you graduated from what was the school? What was
New
the
York City
undergrad?
College of Technology.
Okay.
We call it City Tech.
City
It's,
Tech.
yeah, also like a public CUNY college that has an awesome burgeoning design program. So I graduated from there in communication design. And since then, the program has like grown phenomenally into like their own mini ad school.
Nice.
So it's awesome.
So you graduated from City Tech, and then how long in between from graduating from undergrad at City Tech did it take you to go to portfolio school, which is City University of New York College? Is that right? City University of New York City College.
Yeah, the City College of New York. It took like, I think, one semester I took off.
Oh, okay.
So in that one semester, I did like a lot of freelancing, a lot of, I think, trying to do my portfolio on my own,
Okay.
and a lot of just being a student to the game, which I think helped me so much. I used to like go to the library of my undergrad and like read award annuals from like the 90s.
Nice.
I think that just fascinated me and really underscored the fact that I want to be in this industry and do this kind of work.
Yeah. So did you have the intentions of, were you job searching after your undergrad and you were like freelancing, you were trying to find a job, you were trying to build your portfolio? What was your intention in that one semester? What were you trying to get at there? I'm just curious that you took off.
I think a lot of that year was about figuring out what my own personal story was as a creative. I think I'd spent so long doing projects for other brands and not really doing anything that was about me. So I
Yeah.
think in that time, unexpectedly, I took a lot of time doing that. And I think it paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you're always in school, you're always doing assignments, what people are telling you to do, which are great. But you took the time, to do that on your own, to do what you truly wanted. And I've actually adopted a new mindset for undergrad students that I haven't really vocalized a lot on this podcast. Is if you're an undergrad, start focusing on like those passion projects or projects outside of like assignments in classrooms. And now I'm even shifting towards, which might be illegal to say, like, if you're doing like client work for like an organization and you're not getting that great of like briefs, or you're doing like these local clients that they don't really care about advertising, maybe lay off that and just do your own thing. Maybe find a good group of people and really explore when you have that time, because they're not the best creative work. I don't know. It's just something new that I've been bouncing around.
It's so true. I think part of what I did even after portfolio school was just keep building my portfolio
Mm-hmm.
in a way where like I had a copywriter buddy at work and we we weren't doing stuff at our last job that was to the creative standard that we wanted to do. So we did it on our own. We'd like meet
Right.
up on Sundays at a cafe. And that's actually how I got my job here, was the book that we made together.
Exactly, because like when if you're in a student club during undergrad, you might not get the best opportunities, and if you're in an internship, you might be doing coupons, like printing coupons. They're not like, there's not a lot of concept to it. So a portfolio needs to last you a long time. It's your foundation, and if you create a good one, you can ride off that for a long time, because you might not get that great of opportunities when you start in your first couple years of your job. You're not going to be doing those huge campaigns maybe till later. That's just what I'm thinking right now. But
So true. And I will use that to say there's no shame in spec work. I used to always think
no,
like, oh, this is not real. But it's almost cooler because it's not real, because that means there's no clients to like mess it up and have you make the logo bigger.
right, exactly. You need to show interesting and cool work for cool brands that are big, and that's what people want to see when they're hiring. They want to see that you're able to do this. You can concept. You can write good lines if you're a copywriter. You have good art direction if you're an art director. You're a great designer. You can make great designs. They want to see the basics of that. So I think that's really interesting. So, and you obviously found that in portfolio school and then on your own. And you got the cool MPS in your name, the master's, which we love. That's awesome.
As someone who thinks degrees are pointless, I just paid too much for it to not put it somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you earned it for sure. Okay. So then how'd you break in? Tell us. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but what was your first agency job and how'd you get it?
So my first agency job was like, it was a really, really super small startup under a bigger agency umbrella. So the bigger agency was called Golan. And I love telling this story. So I was in portfolio school, and the program had an event where they had Michael Roth, who was then the CEO of IPG. They
Okay.
had Matt
Wow.
Neal, who was the CEO of Golan. And they had two other CEOs, I believe, one from Weber Shandwick and one from another agency.
So we got
And
some
they,
PR in here.
yes, some
Okay.
PR in the house. Love a good earned media headline.
Sure. Yeah.
So I happened to be interviewing for an internship at Golan's subsidiary agency at the time.
Mhm.
And my program director, I like told her about it at the event, and she grabbed my hand and ran me up to this man who was the CEO at the time. I'm like trying to muster up words to say hello. I don't know what came out of my mouth, but we ended up talking and having interaction. From there, I met Michael Roth, which was like insane.
Wow.
And I don't know, we must have hit it off in a really authentic way, because he emailed the hiring manager personally and said, "Are you going to hire her? You need to hire her."
Nice.
So that was for an internship role, but because the agency was so startup and so small at the time, I was able to wear a lot of hats. I was able to be client facing. I was able to like quasi lead creative initiatives and projects within the agency. So it was an amazing experience that I think wouldn't have happened if I didn't put myself in a position to like be at this event. And I think too, if I didn't just do something that I was a little like scared shitless to do, which is like talk to a CEO of this big agency.
Yeah, absolutely. What was this event?
It was a small, they used to have a 5 at 5 event. So there were 5 leaders, and they talked about like 5 relevant topics. But like honestly, just like a before class event, they would really try to bring people from the industry to the campus. So that was one of the things
Love
that
that.
they just had and took advantage of. I went for the free cheese and crackers and
That'll
ended up
do it.
getting an internship. So
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the free pizza will draw you in, but now that you're listening, and if people that are listening to this are probably already motivated, but go to those events, because you'll meet CEOs and you'll shake hands and you'll get that resume pushed through or that portfolio pushed through for sure. Love it. So you got the internship, you did well there. You said it was smaller startup of Golan, where you wore many hats. You got to show off, and then what happened after that?
then the agency merged with another agency. So I think
Okay.
merging is just something that's inevitably going to happen in
Sure.
most people's careers in this industry. So we merged with another PR firm. And I think what ended up happening ultimately is with the onset of COVID, the creative department just kind of started to shrink more and more. Unfortunately, just a lot of accounts were lost, and there was just a lot of, I think, just industry-wide, lots
Yeah, it
of
was tough.
change. Yeah.
Was this like in the midst of like the beginning of the pandemic?
The merger happened, I think, in December, and by March we were work from home. So
Sure.
it's super new. And at that time, I was still able to do some cool work even with the pandemic. And just like by the grace was able to like keep my job during the pandemic. But I think when I was approached by Gray, it seemed like a really cool opportunity to do something new at such a bigger place, which is something that I hadn't known. So I went from like very, very small startup pond to like massive lake, river, ocean. But it's
Yeah.
been an awesome experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So getting into gray. I'm going to write that down. That might be the headliner or something like that. So tell us about that. Like, was it difficult? Who'd you talk to? Give us the process there.
I was approached by a recruiter who was awesome. And I think, honestly, with all those processes, there's a lot of like interviewing, meeting people, schedules. So it took a while. But one thing that I think I noticed right off the bat was that the people just seemed awesome and the energy seemed awesome. And I think it was the first opportunity where I was able to interview the place where I was working and not like feel like an interviewee. And I think that was part of the reason why I felt like it was such a good fit, because I was like in my house able to ask these questions, not
Sure.
like having to sneak out of my office job.
Yeah.
I felt like I was able to connect with the recruiters in a more authentic way just because I already had a job. So I was in a position where like, okay, like let me ask the tough questions about your culture and how your employees feel. So after that process, I think what really made me feel like, yeah, I definitely want to do this were just the creative directors that I spoke to. I think one of the biggest things about an agency is their leadership. And agencies where I've like not wanted to work at or have heard bad things about, I think also stem from how their leadership is. So that was really what for me made me want to make the jump. And funny semi-story, I'd gone to visit Gray in undergrad, and I had a picture of a piece of artwork at the agency as my screensaver for years. And to
Oh,
like
really?
see that in person at the office, I've like started going again every now and a while. And it was just surreal to like feel like I visited this place and now I'm like able to be a part of the environment. So
Absolutely.
really cool.
Absolutely. Um, and you bring up a good point. Like, it's about who you work with and who you work for. And I know when you're an undergrad or you're in portfolio school or in grad school or your recent grad, wherever you're at, the tendency is to think the big name, which is, those are always changing, right? Like ECDs move around, CCOs move around, the structure and the people are constantly evolving at these agencies. And there's, looking at who you're going to be working for is super important. So I always try to remind people, the name will change. I mean, Wyden's Wyden because the people that work there, right? So I'm glad that you like everybody there. It sounds like a great place. Any ads that you've made in the past or in the past couple of months that you're super proud of?
There's one in development now. So we're going through the motions of that, and I will be proud of it when it is released. But one that I will talk about that was in development as I was joining, so I didn't get to touch it. But
Okay.
I admire the team that worked on it and the project itself so
Sure.
much. It was for P&G as an umbrella brand. It was called Widen the Screen, and it was literally about the narrowness of perspectives and images of people of color in media. And if you think about like widening the screen, it's really widening what we see. It's widening the representation of people of color in media. And I think it was such an important tactic, but it was also such a clever, creative idea. I think they
What'd they
played
do?
around with the idea of the screen ratio, how it's like 16, and then like we literally see such a narrow slice, and then visually you see that expand. So the spots feature stories where you'd see people of color in scenarios where like you'd kind of hint on what would happen next based on stereotypes that we are so used to seeing in media. And then it flips on its head because you actually see that the stories end with outcomes that are actually positive depictions that are contrary to what we usually see. So I think it was such an important statement to be made by such a big consumer brand, but also done in such a clever way. So
What's it called? Widen the screen?
widen the screen, yeah.
Wow. All right, everybody check that out. I'm gonna watch that right after this. I love
It's an
it.
awesome series.
Nice. And you're working on stuff now that you're excited about?
Yeah, I think honestly, to be able to like get into an environment where I'm already like able to produce work so quickly is like super inspiring. And I've been able to learn so much throughout the process. So that's been super cool.
I'm sure there's a lot of resources there and great people. Okay. So that's your story. Did we miss any like parts of it, like of how you got to where you're at today? Do you want to shout out anything?
I'll definitely shout out the Marcus Graham Project.
Right.
To what I was telling you before. It's an awesome program. And I think throughout all of my employment experiences, I've been somehow able to leverage that community too.
Well, explain what it is. So, and then
Yes.
like how people can like look into it.
The Marcus Graham Project is an awesome fellowship program that helps just champion diversity in the advertising communication space. And literally anybody and everyone can be a part of their programming. They do nationwide workshops, and they do a bigger boot camp every year. Such an awesome way to gain exposure into this industry. I think one of the toughest things about this industry is even for like internships or the most entry level roles, you'll see like they'll hit you with 1 to 2 year experience mandates. And it's like, how do I get that experience? So I love programs like the Marcus Graham Project and similar ones because they provide that experience. I feel like so much of this industry is very like who you know and what you know. And I think programs like that democratize being able to get into this industry.
Absolutely. So what is it? It's like, is it a summer internship? Is it like a conference? Is it like, what are the details of it?
So I will share the link with you. I think the best way is just to follow them on social. My friend sent me the link to their website, and that's how I was able to apply to one of their like workshops.
Okay.
And from there,
So the workshop.
Yeah. So they have workshops that are typically like around 3 to 4 days where you work with awesome brands, and they also have their bigger boot camp. So many opportunities to get involved. I believe it's marcusgrahamproject.org.
I'm here. Yeah. Okay.
But they're on social. They're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just an awesome community of people from all different backgrounds, not just creative.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I've heard of it and I've heard great things about it, but you're our first guest that spoke about it. So it's always good to get new resources like that. Obviously, the MAPE program, MPMS program are huge to the AAF. We've had plenty of guests that have gone through that and found tremendous success. So we'll keep an eye out for that as well. I'll link to those resources. What else though? What else? You said you love giving advice and you love giving the insights and resources. What else do you recommend for somebody that is a recent graduate or somebody in college right now to be successful as a creative in advertising?
I think one awesome thing that a CCO actually told me was to leverage Leverage the fact that we are such digital natives, and leverage the fact that we live, breathe, and like eat and sleep a lot of these platforms that so many people in the industry are so thirsty to like tap into and navigate for their clients. So I think for me, I love Instagram. And so one of the things that I always try to think of when I was thinking of spec work and portfolio work is like, what are awesome ways to hack Instagram for this client? And I think in part, a lot of that stuff is what attracted CDs to my portfolio, because a lot of times your simple standard like print stuff, while that's so important and so integral to like expressing a concept, there are a lot of people that can come up with those executions. But if you're able to show brands how they can win on TikTok, how they can win on Instagram, how they can like hack stories in a cool way, those are going to be the ideas that there are a lot less of. How to do cool podcast stuff. And I think that's the stuff that brands want to see, because right now there are so many brands scratching the surface on the digital space.
Yes. I'm not the best at social media stuff. I know that. But if you got it, you got it. And that stuff, you can't really like teach that to somebody that's older, right? You could, but they'd rather just pay you to do it, right? So just do it and offer them. Show them what you know. I mean, we're born with it. Like, it's crazy how innate we can just pick up the phone. Like, I've had to tell older people that I know, like, this is what an Instagram story is. Like, this is how you gotta click on the logo on top. Like, it goes away after 24 hours, actually, but the in-feed stays forever. So just explaining those little basics that we've known for so long is so important that you can apply to any brand, really.
It's so true. And I can't tell you how much clients and like CDs just appreciate like you being able to help them tap into something that's timely. So many things on social are like, if you don't hit it in the minute, you didn't hit it. So
There's
I mean,
that
like,
earned, you got that little PR background like detecting. Yeah. The timeliness, the relevance of it. Yeah.
it's so true. We love a good headline.
Yeah. And yeah, being in the moment. And we know that, like, yeah, if you don't share it, you're doing your boss a disservice.
So true.
Yeah. I had to explain, like, you can't really post more than like 2 in-feed posts a day. Like, don't do that. Don't flood on Instagram. Like I think like one a week is fine, but you know, that's for my personal brand.
Even like last summer, I think in the wake of like George Floyd's murder, so many brands did not know how to respond. And it was so interesting seeing the power dynamic flip, where all these like younger, more junior people are being asked, like, what do we do? How should we do it? How do we come off authentic in this time where a lot of people are messing up and we're afraid to? So
yeah,
definitely comes in handy. That would be my advice. Another piece of advice I would say is don't be afraid to be scrappy. I think a lot of times, especially because a lot of work is coming from big agencies or big production houses, I think there's still a huge appreciation for scrappy things. And I think in an era where like production value for an Instagram post is like insane to fathom, I think there is definitely a cleverness and an appreciation to being scrappy in a unique and conceptual way. So,
love that. Do you have any examples off the top of your head?
One of my favorite things that I used to do at my last agency was I shot our social content, and that was so fun. I think especially to see like some of the stuff that we literally did in the closet of our agency garner so much engagement and start so much conversation on social. I think it was helpful too to be able to like leverage that for my own professional growth of saying like I, was responsible for creating content that performed like this. I think another example of that was just like in the beginning of the pandemic, so many production houses and even in-house agency teams and agency teams in general had to be scrappy. So we saw a lot of like in-house photo shoots happening. We saw a lot of like virtual productions happen that like seem unfathomable to have happened virtually, but they did. A lot of things come into fruition, and even the ways agencies continue to use their leverage to promote messages like getting vaccinated and just things pertaining to stopping the spread, I think has been super clever.
Yeah, absolutely. Using their voice, being scrappy. I love it. And okay, what about like resources? Any resources you recommend? You said Marcus Graham. Any like things that you follow day to day that you recommend? You know, we got Ad Age, we know Ad Week. Anything else you want to shout out?
I love the underground ones. Definitely would give Natalie, Cam, and We Are Next a shout out. There's another small group. Well, they're probably not that small, but they're called Team Strategist. It's not spelled in the conventional way. Sorry, I'm like trying to. Yeah, it's like strategist with no vowels. I'll send you the link, but they are awesome.
Perfect. What do they do?
They just have a lot of awesome content just around navigating in the industry, but also just like self-purpose, how to just articulate your personal brand. I did a workshop particularly on that topic with them, and it was awesome. And just like awesome resources. I find in this time, it's especially cool to connect with people on a level that's not just like learning, but also just connecting. So they have a lot of that stuff too.
What's your personal brand?
My personal brand.
That's the weirdest question.
I know, right? I'll give you a rough off the cuff elevator pitch.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
I am an art director who is hell-bent on breaking the rules to tell stories that often go untold. I love things at the intersection of just like digital and social reach. Again, I'll use thumb stopping even though I hate that, but also that have a core rooted in purpose and changing the way people think. I think if advertising doesn't bring people together, make people mad, or make them want to like hug each other, they didn't do it right.
That's perfect. Wow, that's how you do it right there. So amazing, and it says so much about you. So it's a great brand, and it's meaningful. So we love that, and that's how you do it right there. I think we can leave it off unless you have anything else you want to say to the people out there.
Keep pushing, keep working on your book. It is an ever-changing thing. I will probably be working on my portfolio during my funeral. I tell people, but it'll all be worth it. That's how important it is to keep updating it, and just be a student to the game. There's so many resources, so many things, I think, especially now that the industry is creating so that people can really learn and grow, and understand the creative bar and surpass it. So totally take advantage of that.
Awesome. And we'll link to all of your resources and your portfolio, of course, at our Instagram account at Entering Ad. One more time, at Entering Ad. So that's all I got, Natalie. This has been fantastic. You've been so helpful. So I appreciate you coming on, and have a wonderful day.
Appreciate you. This is awesome. And I'm so awesome and excited to hear future guests on the show.
Of course. Thank you. Did you hear anything on this episode about a job you'd like to have someday, soon, in advertising, strategy, design? The kind of job where you use your brain and your creativity? If you did, chances are a portfolio can really help you get that job. That's where Chicago Portfolio School comes in. They have programs and classes that help you show off your thinking and get you the job you want. So visit them at chicagoportfolio.com. And if you drop my name, Gino, into the chat box, they'll send you more info and a cool Sharpie. Or just some more info. You can decide that. Thanks. Thank you all for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's guest. Make sure you go and connect with them on LinkedIn. Tell them that Breaking and Entering sent you. Now, thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio technician, and Buchan Zhang, our creative director, as well as the student team from the Midnight Oil Agency at the University of Illinois. Can't do it without you all. Thank you very much. We will see you all next week with another amazing guest.